The war council chamber smelled like old paper and candle wax. I stood in the corner, trying to make myself invisible as General Cale Ashford discussed battle strategies with his commanders. At 23, he was the youngest general in the kingdom's history, with sharp gray eyes that could cut through stone and a presence that made everyone straighten their spines. I was just Milo Chun, a low-ranking intelligence officer who happened to be an Omega. In the military, that made me less than nothing in most people's eyes. "The report, Chen," Cale said without looking at me. I stepped forward, my hands trembling slightly as I handed him the decoded enemy messages. Our fingers brushed for just a moment, and I felt that familiar electric shock run through my body. My Omega instincts screamed that this Alpha was special, that he was meant for me. Cale jerked his hand back like I had burned him. "Sir, the enemy forces are planning to attack the eastern border in 3 days," I said quickly, keeping my voice steady even though my heart raced. Cale studied the papers, his jaw tight. "Good work. Dismissed." As I turned to leave, I heard Commander Ross whisper to another officer, "Poor kid. Everyone knows General Ashford will never accept an Omega mate, especially not some nobody like Chun." I pretended I didn't hear, but the words stabbed deep. Later that night, I found Cale alone in the strategy room, staring at maps by lamplight. I should have left, but something made me stay. "You should rest, sir," I said softly. He didn't look up. "I don't need rest. I need to win this war. Even generals are human," I said, stepping closer. "You can't protect everyone if you collapse from exhaustion." Finally, he looked at me, and for just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something warm. But then his expression hardened like ice forming over water. "You're not my Omega, Chen," he said coldly. "Whatever you think you feel, whatever instincts you have, ignore them. I don't want a mate. I don't need one, especially not someone as weak as you." The words hit me like physical blows. I felt my eyes burn with tears, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. "Understood, sir," I whispered. I left quickly, my vision blurred. In my small quarters, I finally let myself cry. The bond one felt was real, I knew it was. But Cale rejected it completely. He rejected me. The next morning, I threw myself into my work. If he didn't want me, then I would prove my worth in other ways. I decoded messages faster than anyone else. I found patterns in enemy movements that saved hundreds of lives. I volunteered for dangerous missions to gather intelligence behind enemy lines. Cale never thanked me directly, but I sometimes caught him watching me with an unreadable expression. 3 months passed like this. The war grew more brutal. I watched Cale from a distance, seeing the weight of command crushing him slowly. He never smiled. He barely ate. He pushed himself harder than anyone else. One night, during a surprise enemy attack on our camp, I was separated from my unit. An enemy soldier cornered me in a supply tent, his knife gleaming in the firelight. I thought I was going to die. Then Cale appeared like an avenging angel, his sword flashing. He killed the enemy soldier in seconds and turned to me, his eyes wild with something I had never seen before. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, grabbing my shoulders. "I'm fine," I gasped. For a moment, we stood there in the burning camp, smoke swirling around us, and I saw his mask crack. His hands on my shoulders trembled. "Cale," I whispered. He dropped his hands and stepped back. "Stay close to your unit, Chun. I won't always be there to save you." Then he was gone, leaving me standing alone in the chaos. I realized something then. Cale felt the bond too. He was fighting it with everything he had, but it was there. The question was, why was he so determined to deny it? Winter came early that year, blanketing the war zone in thick snow. Our army set up a temporary base in an abandoned fortress, its stone walls offering protection from both enemies and the bitter cold. I had been avoiding Cale since the attack on the camp, but fate had other plans. "Chan, you'll accompany the general on a reconnaissance mission to the northern ridge," Commander Ross announced during the morning briefing. "Just the two of you. We can't spare more soldiers." My heart dropped. Cale's expression remained neutral, but I saw his fingers tighten on the map. "Is that necessary?" Kale asked coolly. Chun knows the terrain and speaks the northern dialect. You need him, Ross replied firmly. We left at dawn. The silence between us was suffocating as our horses trudged through the snow. Kale rode ahead, his back straight and rigid, refusing to even glance in my direction. After 3 hours, we reached an overlook where we could observe enemy troop movements in the valley below. Kale dismounted and pulled out his spyglass. I set up our temporary camp, my hands numb from the cold. There, Kale said suddenly, pointing. They're moving supplies west. That means their main force is planning something big. I moved beside him to look, and our shoulders touched. Kale immediately shifted away. Why do you hate me so much? The question escaped before I could stop it. Kale lowered the spyglass slowly. I don't hate you. Then why do you act like I'm poison? He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Because you are, he finally said. You're poison to everything I've built, everything I've become. I don't understand. Kale turned to face me fully for the first time in months. The winter sun caught his gray eyes, making them almost silver. My father was an alpha who let his bond with an omega destroy him. When my mother died giving birth to my sister, my father went mad with grief. He abandoned his duties, his lands, his surviving children. He became nothing. I felt my breath catch. I swore I would never be like him, Kale continued, his voice hard. I would never let emotion rule me. I would never let a bond make me weak. And then you appeared, and I felt it immediately. That pull. That instinct screaming that you were mine. So you decided to reject it, I said softly. To reject me. It's not about you, Milo, he said, using my first name for the first time ever. It's about survival. If I let myself care, if I let myself feel what I feel when you're near, I'll become my father. I'll fail everyone who depends on me. That's not how it works, I protested. A bond doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. You're naive, Kale said, but his voice was gentler than before. You don't know what it's like to carry the lives of thousands on your shoulders. You're right, I don't, I admitted. But I know what it's like to be rejected by the one person your soul recognizes. I know what it's like to feel incomplete. Something flickered across Kale's face. Pain, maybe, or regret. Before either of us could speak again, an arrow whistled past my head, missing me by inches. Down! Kale shouted, tackling me to the ground as more arrows filled the air. We were under attack. Kale drew his sword, his body covering mine protectively. Stay behind me, he ordered. Enemy soldiers emerged from the tree line, at least a dozen of them. We were trapped on the ridge with nowhere to run. Kale fought like a demon, his blades singing through the air. I grabbed a fallen sword and defended his back, my training kicking in despite my fear. We moved together naturally, like we had been fighting side by side for years instead of minutes. When the last enemy fell, we were both breathing hard, covered in blood and snow. You fight well for an omega, Kale said, surprise clear in his voice. I'm full of surprises, General, I replied with a tired smile. Kale stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then he reached out and gently wiped blood from my cheek with his thumb. We should head back before more come, he said quietly, but he didn't move his hand. Neither did I. That night we made camp in a small cave. The snow had started falling heavily, making travel impossible. We sat by the fire, the warmth slowly returning to our frozen bodies. My sister Elena is 16 now, Kale said suddenly, breaking the silence. She's an omega too. When our father left, I raised her. I protected her. I made sure she would never depend on anyone but herself. You're a good brother, I said. I'm a terrified brother, he corrected. I'm terrified that she'll find her alpha and suffer like our mother did. I'm terrified that I'll find mine and become like our father. Fear is a prison, Kale, I said gently, and you're stronger than you think. He looked at me across the firelight, his eyes reflecting the flames. You should sleep. I'll keep watch. But as I lay down on my bedroll, I heard him whisper, I'm sorry, Milo. For everything. I pretended to be asleep, but my heart raced with hope. Spring arrived with explosive violence. The enemy launched their largest offensive yet, and our forces were pushed back mile by bloody mile. I barely saw Kale during those chaotic weeks. He was everywhere at once, rallying troops, making impossible decisions, carrying the weight of the entire war on his shoulders. I watched him slowly break under the pressure. One night, I found him in his command tent, alone and shaking. Reports littered his desk, each one describing losses, casualties, failures. "Kale?" I said softly from the entrance. "Go away, Milo," he said, but his voice cracked. I didn't leave. Instead, I walked to him and gently took the report from his trembling hands. "You need to rest," I said. "I need to win," he replied hoarsely. "People are dying because I'm not good enough, not smart enough, not fast enough." "You're human," I reminded him. "You can't save everyone." "I have to try," he whispered, and I saw tears streaming down his face. My heart shattered seeing him like this. Without thinking, I pulled him into my arms. He stiffened for a moment, then collapsed against me, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I'm so tired," he admitted against my shoulder. "I'm so tired of being strong." "Then be weak with me," I said softly. "Just for tonight. Let me carry some of your burden." We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the darkness. When Kale finally pulled back, his eyes were red but clearer. "I don't deserve you," he said. "That's not for you to decide," I replied with a small smile. Something changed between us that night. Kale didn't suddenly accept our bond, but the wall between us developed cracks. The next day, he called me to a private strategy meeting. Just the two of us. "I need your mind," he said, spreading maps across the table. "Not as an Omega, not as anything but the smartest person I know. Help me end this war." We worked together for hours, analyzing patterns, predicting enemy movements, developing strategies. Felt right, like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "There," I said suddenly, pointing to a spot on the map. "The enemy supply lines all converge here. If we cut them off, their entire army will starve within a week." Kale studied the location, his eyes widening. "It's brilliant. Dangerous, but brilliant." "I'll lead the mission," I volunteered. "Absolutely not," Kale said immediately. "I'm the best choice. I know the terrain, I speak the language, and I'm small enough to move undetected." "You could die," Kale said, his voice tight. "People are dying every day," I countered. "If this mission succeeds, we could save thousands. Isn't that worth the risk?" Kale looked at me with anguish in his eyes. "Not if it costs me you." The admission hung in the air between us. "You can't have it both ways, Kale," I said gently. "You can't push me away and also refuse to let me go." He turned away, his hands gripping the table edge. "I know. Then let me do this," I said. "Let me help end this war. Trust me." After a long silence, Kale nodded slowly. "But you take a team. Commander Ross and 5 of our best soldiers." "Deal," I agreed. The mission was set for 3 days later. During those 3 days, Kale trained with me personally, teaching me advanced combat techniques, making sure I was prepared for anything. On the last day, as we practiced sword fighting in the training yard, Kale suddenly stopped and lowered his blade. "If something happens to you," he said quietly, "I don't know what I'll do. Then I'll make sure nothing happens," I promised. The night before the mission, Kale came to my tent. He stood in the entrance, looking uncertain for the first time since I'd met him. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Of course." He sat beside me on my bedroll, close but not touching. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. "When I was young," Kale began, "my mother used to tell me stories about true mates. She said when you find yours, you'll know because your soul will feel complete. Like you've been looking for something your entire life without knowing what it was." "That sounds beautiful," I said. "I felt it the moment I met you," Kale admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "And it terrified me more than any battle ever has." I reached out slowly and took his hand. He didn't pull away. Fear isn't the enemy, Kale, I said. Loneliness is. He turned to look at me, and in his eyes, I saw everything he was too afraid to say out loud. Come back to me, he said finally. Promise me you'll come back. I promise, I said. Kale lifted my hand and pressed a gentle kiss to my knuckles. It was the first time he'd ever touched me with affection, and it felt like the world shifted. When this war is over, he said, I want to try. I want to stop running from what we are. We? I asked, hope blooming in my chest. Mates? Kale said, and the words sounded like a prayer. If you'll still have me after everything I've done. I smiled through the tears gathering in my eyes. I'll always choose you. We spent the rest of the night talking, sharing stories, learning each other. When dawn came, Kale kissed my forehead gently before leaving. Be safe, he whispered. Always, I replied. The enemy territory was darker than I expected, with thick forests that seemed to swallow light. Our team moved silently through the shadows, Commander Ross leading while I navigated using the maps I had memorized. The supply depot is 2 miles ahead, I whispered. Heavy guard. But their patrol patterns have a gap every 20 minutes. Ross nodded approvingly. Good eye, Chin. We waited for the right moment, then moved in. Everything went smoothly at first. We planted explosives on the supply wagons, set timers, and began our retreat. Then someone spotted us. Run! Ross shouted. Chaos erupted. Enemy soldiers poured out of barracks, arrows flying through the darkness. One of our team members fell, then another. Keep moving, I yelled, covering their retreat with my crossbow. We were almost clear when I felt a sharp pain in my side. I looked down to see an arrow buried deep in my flesh. Blood bloomed across my uniform, hot and sticky. Chen's hit, someone shouted. Ross grabbed my arm, pulling me forward. Stay with us. The explosives detonated behind us, lighting up the night sky. The blast wave threw us forward, and I hit the ground hard, my vision swimming. We need to get him back to camp, Ross said urgently. He's losing too much blood. The journey back was a blur of pain and consciousness. I kept drifting in and out, hearing worried voices, feeling hands trying to stop the bleeding. Stay awake, Chen, Ross kept saying. The general will kill me if you die. I wanted to laugh at that, but it hurt too much. When we finally reached our camp, I heard someone shouting for a medic. Then I heard another voice, one that made my heart clench. Milo! Kale appeared above me, his face pale and terrified. No, 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 he was saying, his hands hovering over my wound like he was afraid to touch me. Mission successful, I managed to whisper, trying to smile. Shut up, Kale said, his voice breaking. Don't talk. Save your strength. The medic arrived and started working on me. I heard him say something about the arrow being close to vital organs, about infection risk, about it being serious. Fix him, Kale demanded. I don't care what it takes. Fix him. I wanted to tell Kale I would be okay, but darkness was pulling at me. The last thing I remembered was his hand gripping mine and his voice saying, Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. When I woke up, it was 3 days later. The medical tent was quiet, lit by soft afternoon sunlight filtering through the canvas. My side ached terribly, but I was alive. You're awake, a familiar voice said. I turned my head slowly to see Kale sitting beside my bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His uniform was wrinkled, his hair messy, his eyes red-rimmed. How long have you been here? I asked, my voice hoarse. 3 days, he admitted. I haven't left. Kale, you have a war to run. Ross is handling it, he said dismissively. You almost died, Milo. You almost died. And all I could think about was how I wasted so much time pushing you away. I reached out weakly and touched his hand. I'm okay. You're not okay, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You were unconscious for 3 days. You had a fever. The medic said you might not wake up. But I did, I said gently. I promised you I would come back. Kale lifted my hand and pressed it against his cheek. His skin was warm, and I felt moisture on my palm. He was crying. I was terrified, he whispered. I finally understood what my father felt when he lost my mother. That crushing, suffocating fear of losing the person who makes your world make sense. Kale, I started, but he continued. I love you, he said, the words tumbling out like he couldn't hold them back any longer. I love you, and I'm sorry I was too afraid to say it before. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I wasted so much time. My heart felt like it would burst. I love you too, I said. I always have. Kale leaned down and pressed his forehead against mine, his tears falling on my face. When you're healed, when this war is over, I want to do this right. I want to court you properly. I want to give you everything I should have given you from the beginning. I don't need grand gestures, I said. I just need you. You have me, Kale promised. All of me. No more running. No more hiding. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other, finally letting ourselves feel the bond that had been there all along. The next few weeks were strange. I was confined to bed rest, healing slowly. Kale visited every day, sometimes just to sit with me, other times to bring me reports and ask my opinion on strategies. The enemy is retreating, he told me one afternoon. Your mission worked. We cut off their supplies, and now they're falling apart. So we're winning? I asked. We're winning, he confirmed with a rare smile. Another month, maybe 2, and this war will be over. What happens then? I asked quietly. Kale took my hand, intertwining our fingers. Then we start our life together. No more war, no more fear, just us. It sounded like a dream, but as spring turned to summer, and I finally healed enough to return to active duty, I noticed something changing. The enemy was becoming more desperate, their attacks more vicious and unpredictable. And Kale was receiving letters from the capital, sealed with the royal crest, that made his expression darken each time he read them. What's wrong? I asked one evening, watching him burn yet another letter. Politics, he said dismissively. Nothing to worry about. But I worried anyway, because I knew Kale, and I could see the stress building behind his eyes. I didn't know it then, but a storm was coming, and it would test everything we had just found. The final battle of the war came in late summer. Enemy forces made one last desperate push, and our entire army mobilized to meet them. Kale commanded from the front lines, his presence inspiring our soldiers to fight harder than ever. I fought beside him, finally fully healed and ready to prove myself. We moved together like we were one person, protecting each other's backs, communicating with just glances and gestures. When our army finally broke through the enemy lines and victory was secured, the entire camp erupted in celebration. Soldiers cheered, embraced, cried with relief. Kale found me in the chaos and pulled me into a tight hug. We did it, he said. It's finally over. I held him close, feeling his heart beating against mine. We survived. Together, he added, pulling back to look at me with so much love in his eyes that it made my breath catch. But our moment was interrupted by a messenger running up, looking panicked. General Ashford, a royal envoy has arrived. The king demands your immediate presence. Kale's expression hardened. Tell them I'll come shortly. Sir, they said immediately. It's urgent. Kale squeezed my hand once before letting go. Wait for me in my tent. I'll be back soon. But he wasn't. Hours passed with no word. Night fell, and the celebration continued around me, but I felt increasingly uneasy. Finally, Commander Ross found me. Chun, we need to talk, he said grimly. What's happened? Where's Kale? Ross led me away from the crowds to a quiet corner. The king has issued an order. General Ashford is to return to the capital immediately to accept a reward for his service. That's good news, isn't it? The reward is a marriage, Ross said carefully. To Princess Helena, the king's daughter. The world tilted beneath my feet. What? It was arranged months ago. The king wanted to secure Ashford's loyalty and elevate his family status. Kale refused initially, but the king threatened to strip him of his rank and lands if he didn't comply. That's why he's been receiving those letters, I whispered, pieces clicking into place. Ross nodded. Kale's been fighting it, but the king won't budge. An alpha general marrying a princess is politically valuable. The king doesn't care that Kale has found his true mate. Does Kale know I know? I asked. I don't think so. He probably planned to tell you himself, but the envoy forced his hand. I felt numb. After everything, after finally admitting our feelings, after surviving a war together, we were going to be torn apart by politics. Where is he now? In his command tent with the royal envoy, Ross said. But Chun, you should know something else. The king specifically forbids any Omega from accompanying Kale to the capital. You would be forced to stay here or return to your home village. Of course, an Omega had no place in a princess's court. I stood there for a long moment processing. Then I made a decision. Thank you for telling me, Commander, I said quietly. Chun, wait. But I was already walking away, toward the edge of camp. Away from the celebration, away from the command tent, away from everything. I didn't want to see Kale. I didn't want to hear his explanations or see the guilt in his eyes. I knew he would try to find a way out, but I also knew he couldn't refuse the king without destroying everything he'd built. I had been naive to think we could have a happy ending. By the time Kale found me, I was packing my few belongings in my tent. Milo, he said from the entrance, his voice desperate. Please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I said without looking at him. You have to marry the princess. I understand. I don't want to marry her, Kale said, stepping inside. I want you. What you want doesn't matter, I said, finally turning to face him. You're a general. You have duties, responsibilities. I was stupid to think an Omega like me could fit into your life. Don't say that, Kale said, moving closer. You're not stupid. This situation is impossible, but I'm going to fix it. How? I demanded. Will you give up everything you've worked for? Your rank? Your lands? Your sister's future? Because that's what refusing will cost you. Kale's silence was answer enough. I thought so, I said quietly. You can't choose me, Kale. And I don't blame you. I really don't. But I can't stay here and watch you marry someone else. So what, you're just leaving? Kale asked, pain clear in his voice. Yes, I said, even though it killed me. I'm going back to my village. I'm going to try to forget this ever happened. And you're going to go to the capital, marry your princess, and have the life you're supposed to have. That's not the life I want, Kale said, his voice breaking. But it's the life you'll have, I said. Goodbye, Kale. I picked up my pack and walked toward the tent entrance. Kale grabbed my arm, stopping me. Milo, please, he begged. Don't go. Give me time. I'll find a way. I gently pulled my arm free. Time won't change anything. Let me go, Kale. It's kinder this way. I love you, he said desperately. I know, I replied, my vision blurring with tears. I love you too. That's why I'm leaving. I walked out of the tent and didn't look back, even though every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn around, to run into his arms, to hold on and never let go. But I kept walking. I left the camp that night, traveling alone through the dark. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to be far away when dawn came and Kale left for the capital. Behind me, I heard a sound that would haunt me forever. The sound of Kale calling my name, his voice raw with anguish, echoing through the empty night. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I just walked into the darkness and let it swallow me whole. 3 months passed like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I wandered from town to town, taking odd jobs, never staying anywhere long enough to form connections. My bond with Kale ached constantly, a phantom pain that no medicine could ease. Sometimes I heard news about General Ashford, about his grand wedding to Princess Helena, about how he stood at the altar in his formal uniform, looking like a statue carved from ice, about how he never smiled, never laughed, never showed any emotion at all. I tried not to listen, but the stories found me anyway. I was working in a small tavern in a border town when Commander Ross found me. Chun, he said, sitting at the bar. We need to talk. I don't want to hear about him, I said immediately. Too bad, Ross said bluntly. Because he's destroying himself and you need to know. Against my better judgment, I listened. The wedding happened 2 months ago, Ross began. Cale went through with it because the king threatened to strip him of everything and throw his sister Elena into a workhouse if he refused. He sacrificed everything for her. I felt my heart clench. But after the wedding, something broke in him, Ross continued. He's different, cold, mechanical. He performs his duties perfectly, but it's like he's not really there. The Cale we knew is gone. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because the princess came to me in secret, Ross said. She's not cruel, Chin. She didn't want this marriage either. She told me that Cale has nightmares every night. He calls your name in his sleep. He wakes up screaming, searching for you. He's falling apart. He has a wife now, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He made his choice. He had no choice, Ross corrected. And the princess knows about you. She knows Cale is bonded to someone else. She wants to help. Help how? There are rumors of rebellion in the north, Ross said carefully. If certain nobles were to overthrow the current king, the new ruler might be more sympathetic to true mate bonds. The princess has connections to these rebels. I stared at him. You're talking about treason. I'm talking about freeing two people who love each other from an impossible situation, Ross said. But it's dangerous. Could take months or even years. And there's no guarantee of success. What does Cale think about this? Cale doesn't know, Ross admitted. The princess and I are keeping it from him because in his current state, he might do something reckless. But we need time and we need Cale to hold on. That's why I'm here. You want me to see him, I realized. I want you to remind him why he needs to survive, Ross said. Even if you can't be together right now, he needs to know you're alive and waiting. I shook my head. Seeing each other will only make it worse. It can't get worse, Chen, Ross said seriously. Last week, Cale led a patrol into enemy territory alone. No backup, no plan. He was looking for a fight, looking to die. We barely got to him in time. My blood ran cold. What? He's given up, Ross said. He thinks if he can't have you, there's no point in living. You're the only one who can pull him back. I closed my eyes, torn between wanting to protect my heart and wanting to save the man I loved. Where is he? I finally asked. Ross smiled grimly. The capital. In the military quarter. But you'll need to be careful. If the king finds out you're there. I don't care, I interrupted. If Cale is in danger, I'm going to him. There's one more thing you should know, Ross said. The princess told me something else. About why the king was so insistent on this marriage. What? The king's advisor is an alpha who wanted Cale for himself, Ross explained. When he realized Cale had found his true mate, he convinced the king that an omega would weaken the general. He orchestrated this entire situation out of jealousy and spite. Anger flared hot in my chest. That bastard. Exactly, Ross said. Which is another reason we need to be careful. He's watching Cale closely, looking for any excuse to harm you. I stood up, my decision made. I'm going to the capital. Tonight. I'll arrange transport, Ross said, standing as well. And Chen? Thank you. For not giving up on him. I couldn't give up even if I wanted to, I admitted. The bond won't let me. The journey to the capital took 5 days. Every mile felt like torture. Knowing Cale was suffering and I wasn't there to help him. When I finally arrived, I used the contacts Ross had given me to sneak into the military quarter. The city was massive, overwhelming, nothing like the quiet villages I'd grown up in. I found Cale in the training yard late at night, alone, attacking a practice dummy with savage, desperate strikes. His movements were precise but wrong, driven by rage and pain rather than discipline. Cale, I said softly. He froze mid-strike, his sword falling from nerveless fingers. Slowly, he turned around. The sight of him broke my heart all over again. He'd lost weight, his face gaunt and haunted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled as he stared at me like I was a ghost. "Milo," he whispered, "you're not real. You're another dream." "I'm real," I said, stepping closer. "I'm here." Kale shook his head, backing away. "No, no, you left. You're gone. This is just another nightmare." "Kale, it's really me," I insisted, reaching for him. When my hand touched his arm, he gasped like I had burned him. Then suddenly he was pulling me against him, his arms wrapping around me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're here," he kept saying, his voice breaking. "You're really here." "I'm here," I confirmed, holding him just as tightly. Kale pulled back just enough to cup my face in his hands, his eyes searching mine desperately. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I should have fought harder. I should have chosen you." "You chose your sister," I said gently. "You did what you had to do." "I'm dying without you," Kale admitted, tears streaming down his face. "Every day feels like drowning. I can't eat, can't sleep, can't think. The bond is killing me." "I know," I said. "I feel it too." Kale pressed his forehead against mine. "I don't know what to do. I'm trapped. I'm married to Helena, bound by law and duty. But every part of me belongs to you." "Then we'll figure it out together," I said. "I'm not leaving again. I can't." "If the king finds out you're here—" "I don't care," I interrupted. "Let him find out. I'm done running from this. From us." For the first time in months, I saw hope flicker in Kale's eyes. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Probably not," I agreed with a small smile. "But you're stuck with me anyway." Kale laughed, and the sound was like music after so much silence. Then he kissed me, gentle and desperate at the same time, pouring 3 months of longing and pain into that single moment. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were crying. "We'll find a way," Kale promised. "No matter how long it takes, no matter what we have to do, I'll find a way for us to be together properly." "I believe you," I said, and I did, because the alternative was unthinkable. We had survived a war. We would survive this too. Hiding in the capital was harder than I expected. The king's advisor, a sharp-eyed alpha named Lord Matthias, seemed to have spies everywhere. I stayed in a safe house arranged by Princess Helena, only meeting Kale in secret. The princess surprised me when we finally met. She was young, barely 20, with kind eyes and a quiet strength. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, "for all of this. I never wanted to be part of breaking up true mates." "It's not your fault," I told her. "I could have refused the marriage," she said. "But my father threatened to hurt people I cared about, just like he threatened Kale's sister. We're all trapped in his web," I said bitterly. Helena nodded. "That's why I'm working with the rebels. My cousin Duke Adrian is planning to challenge my father's rule. He believes in true mate rights and wants to reform the system. But it will take time and careful planning." "How long?" I asked. 6 months, maybe a year," she admitted. "We need to gather support, build alliances, wait for the right moment." I looked at Kale, who sat across from us looking exhausted. "Can you wait that long?" "I'll wait forever if it means we have a chance," he said firmly. But the waiting was torture. Kale had to maintain appearances, attending court functions with Helena by his side while I hid in the shadows. Every time I saw them together, even knowing it was an act, jealousy burned through me. Worse, the bond between Kale and me was becoming physically painful. Being close but unable to truly be together was straining our connection. "You're getting sick," Kale observed one night when we met in secret. "Your skin is too pale, and you're shaking." "I'm fine," I lied. "Don't lie to me," he said, pulling me close. "The bond is hurting you. Being near me but not being able to complete it is tearing you apart." "It's hurting you too," I pointed out, touching the dark circles under his eyes. "Then maybe we should stop meeting," Kale said reluctantly. "Maybe distance would be easier." "No," I said immediately. "I need to see you. Even if it hurts, I need to know you're okay." Kale kissed my forehead. "I hate this. I hate every second of it." "I know. Me too." Our secret meetings continued, but the strain showed. Kale became more withdrawn at court, his temper shorter. People started noticing. General Ashford seems troubled. Lord Matthias observed at a council meeting I wasn't supposed to witness. I was hiding behind a curtain, listening through a crack. Perhaps the marriage isn't agreeing with him? My daughter is perfectly pleasant, the king said dismissively. If Ashford has problems, they're his own. Or perhaps, Matthias continued slyly, he's distracted by something else. Someone else. The king's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? Nothing, Your Majesty. Just that a general should be focused on his duties, not on inappropriate attachments. I felt ice run down my spine. Matthias suspected something. After the meeting, I tried to leave the palace unnoticed, but I turned a corner and ran straight into Lord Matthias himself. Well, he said, his eyes glinting with malice. An Omega wandering the palace halls. How unusual. I'm leaving, I said, trying to step around him. He blocked my path. I know who you are. Milo Chen, the little intelligence officer from the war. The one who's been sneaking around to see General Ashford. My heart raced. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid, Matthias hissed. I've had you followed. I know about your meetings. I know you're his true mate. If you're going to report me to the king, just do it, I said, lifting my chin. Oh, I will, Matthias said with a cruel smile. But not yet. First, I want to watch Ashford suffer more. I want him to know what it's like to lose everything. And then, when he's completely broken, I'll have the king execute you for seducing a married man. You're insane, I breathed. I'm in love, Matthias corrected. I've loved Kale since we were young men training together. But he never looked at me twice. Then you came along, a weak little Omega, and suddenly he couldn't see anyone else. Do you know how that felt? So this is all because Kale rejected you? I asked incredulously. This is about justice, Matthias snarled. Alphas belong with alphas, not with weak Omegas who make them soft. I'm going to save Kale from himself, even if he hates me for it. Before I could respond, Matthias grabbed my arm roughly. You have two choices. Leave the capital tonight and never come back, or stay and watch me destroy both you and Kale. Let him go, a cold voice said. We both turned to see Princess Helena standing at the end of the hallway, flanked by two guards. Your Highness, Matthias said, immediately releasing me and bowing. I was just escorting this intruder out. This man is my guest, Helena said icily, and you will not threaten him again. Does your father know you're harboring your husband's lover? Matthias asked with false sweetness. My father knows that I value loyalty and true love, Helena replied. Perhaps you should remember that before you make more enemies in this court. Matthias's expression darkened. This isn't over. No, Helena agreed. It's not, but you've just declared which side you're on. That was foolish. After Matthias left, Helena turned to me. We need to move faster. He's going to force our hand. What do you mean? The rebellion needs to happen sooner than we planned, she said. Duke Adrian is ready. We just need one more thing. What? Proof that my father has been abusing his power, Helena said. Something that will turn the nobles against him. And I think Lord Matthias just gave us that. That night, Helena, Kale, and I met with Duke Adrian, a stern-faced man with honest eyes. Matthias has been extorting nobles for years, Adrian explained, forcing them to pay him to keep their secrets. If we can get evidence, we can expose him and discredit the king who allowed it. Matthias keeps records, Kale said thoughtfully. I've seen him writing in a ledger in his office. Then we steal it, I said simply. Everyone looked at me. It's too dangerous, Kale protested immediately. I'm an intelligence officer, I reminded him. This is what I do. I'm good at it. He's right, Adrian said. An Omega would draw less suspicion than any of us. Absolutely not, Kale said firmly. I took his hand. Kale, this might be our only chance. Let me do this. Let me help save us. Kale looked tormented, but finally nodded. But not alone. I'm coming with you. So am I, Helena added. If we're caught, I can use my position to protect you both. Duke Adrian smiled grimly. Then we have a plan. 3 days from now, during the king's birthday celebration, everyone will be distracted. 3 days felt like an eternity, but finally the night came. The palace was lit up with lanterns, music and laughter echoing through the halls as nobles celebrated. Helena, Kale, and I slipped away from the festivities and made our way to Matthias's office. I picked the lock while Kale kept watch. Inside, we found the ledger exactly where Kale had said it would be. But as I reached for it, the door burst open. Lord Matthias stood there with palace guards, his smile triumphant. "Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate this?" he said. "I've been waiting for you to make your move. We were trapped. Guards, arrest them all," Lord Matthias commanded, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Breaking into a royal office, attempting to steal private documents. This is treason. The guards moved forward, but Princess Helena stepped in front of us, her voice ringing with authority. "Stand down. I order you as your princess." The guards hesitated, torn between two masters. "The princess has no authority here," Matthias said smoothly. "Not when she's conspiring against her own father." "But I do," another voice said from behind Matthias. Duke Adrian entered with a contingent of his own soldiers. "And as a royal duke, I say these guards answer to me now." Matthias's confidence flickered. "What is this?" "A rebellion," Adrian said simply. "One that's been building for months while you were too arrogant to notice. Half the noble houses are with us. The king's reign of manipulation and cruelty ends tonight." "You'll all hang for this," Matthias snarled. "Not if we win," Helena said calmly. She looked at me and nodded toward the ledger. "Get it." I grabbed the book and started flipping through pages. What I found made my blood boil. Names, dates, crimes. Matthias had been blackmailing nearly everyone at court, from minor nobles to military commanders. He'd orchestrated marriages, destroyed families, and ruined lives, all to increase his own power. "This is enough to condemn him 10 times over," I said. "Give me that." Matthias lunged for the ledger, but Kale stepped between us, his hand on his sword. "Touch him and you die," Kale said quietly, and there was such cold fury in his voice that Matthias actually stepped back. "The king will hear about this," Matthias threatened. "Actually," Helena said, "he already has. My cousin has been presenting the evidence to the royal council as we speak. By now, they've voted to remove my father from power and place Adrian as regent until proper reforms can be made." As if on cue, we heard shouting from the palace courtyard. Through the window, I could see nobles gathering, torches lighting up the night. "It's over, Matthias," Adrian said. "You've lost." But Matthias pulled a knife, his eyes wild with desperation. "If I can't have Kale, no one will." He lunged at me. Kale moved faster than I'd ever seen, his sword flashing. There was a brief struggle, and then Matthias fell, his knife clattering to the floor. "Is he?" I started. "Just wounded," Kale said. "He'll live to face trial." The next few hours were chaos. The king was placed under house arrest. Lord Matthias was dragged away to the dungeons. Nobles argued and debated in the great hall about what came next. Through it all, Kale never left my side, his hand firmly clasped in mine. When dawn broke, Duke Adrian addressed the assembled court. "The old laws that forbade true mates from being together are abolished as of this moment," he declared. "No Alpha or Omega should be forced apart by politics or prejudice." A cheer went up from the crowd. "Furthermore," Adrian continued, "all marriages arranged under duress are hereby annulled, should the parties wish it." Helena stepped forward. "I wish it. General Ashford and I were never truly married in our hearts. I release him from all obligations." Kale squeezed my hand so tightly it almost hurt. "Then it's done," Adrian said. "General Ashford, you're free." The celebration that followed was overwhelming. People congratulated us. Nobles who had suffered under the old king's rule thanked us for our courage. But all I cared about was the man beside me. Finally, as the sun rose fully, Kale pulled me away from the crowds to a quiet garden. "Is this real?" he asked, cupping my face in his hands. "Are we really free?" "We're really free," I confirmed, tears streaming down my face. "Then I have something important to do," Kale said. He dropped to one knee, pulling a simple silver ring from his pocket. "Milo-chan, will you be my mate? Not because of instinct or bond, but because I choose you. Because I love you more than anything in this world." "Yes," I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, always yes." Kale slipped the ring on my finger and stood, pulling me into a kiss that felt like coming home. The bond between us, which had ached and strained for so long, finally settled into something warm and perfect. "I love you," Kale whispered against my lips. "I love you too," I replied. We stood there in the garden as the morning sun painted the sky gold, holding each other, finally free to be together. 2 months later, we had a proper bonding ceremony. It was small and simple, just close friends and family. Kale's sister Elena was there, crying happy tears. Commander Ross gave a speech about how he knew we were meant to be from the moment he saw us together. Even Princess Helena attended, genuinely happy for us. Duke Adrian, now the official regent, had appointed Kale as High Commander of the reformed military. I worked beside him as Chief Intelligence Officer. We made a good team, balancing each other's strengths and weaknesses. The changes to the kingdom were slow but steady. True mate rights were now protected by law. Omegas were given equal opportunities in all professions. The old prejudices didn't disappear overnight, but progress was being made. One evening, 6 months after the rebellion, Kale and I stood on the balcony of our new home, watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "The war, the suffering, everything we went through?" Kale pulled me close against his chest. "I regret that it hurt you. I regret the time we lost. But I don't regret where it brought us. Because of everything we survived, we're stronger together than we ever could have been apart." "That's very philosophical for a general," I teased. "I learned from the smartest person I know," he said, kissing my temple. "My mate." "Your mate," I echoed, and the word still made my heart flutter. We stood there together as stars began appearing in the darkening sky, two souls that had found each other against impossible odds. The war was over. The fighting was done. And finally, after everything, we had our happy ending. Not because it was easy, but because we chose each other every single day. And we always would.